Welcome to Extension Connection on Super Talk 1270. Thoughtful information and discussion with experts from both Burleigh and Morton County Extension Service offices. Extension Connection provides advice on family nutrition, issues in agriculture, lawn and garden, community leadership, homeowner concerns, and so much more. Live from the Super Talk 1270 studio, this is Extension Connection.
Good morning and welcome to the Extension Connection. This is the Morton County staff. Yours truly, Jackie Buckley. We have Carla Mickle, Vanessa Hoynes, and Liz Larson with us today. And just to let our listeners know is that we are taping this week's program, and so we are not live in the studio. But if you have any questions about anything that we talk about, please feel free to call our office at 667-3340 or check out our Facebook or our web page for the Morton County Extension Service. We'll just kind of maybe highlight to start with as to what everybody's going to talk about. Carla?
I have some information on the Igniting Legendary Leaders Conference coming up in Bismarck the end of April, and also some information on some upcoming 4-H events.
How about you, Vanessa?
Well, thinking about Easter coming up and being Holy Week, I thought we should talk a little bit about eggs. And then the other thing that we're also looking at, of course, is probably some ham. And so we're going to talk about some food safety issues, some nutritional kinds of things, and some things that'll hopefully help that Easter cook.
And then how about you, Liz?
All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about April being Child Abuse Prevention Month. It's just around the corner, like 2 weeks away, less than, and highlight a couple of the classes that we have going on from the Parenting Resource Center.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll start off with, I guess to let all our listeners know is that we had a great day at the State FFA contests on Monday in Minot. It was held at the State Fair Center, and I'm proud to announce that the Mandan FFA chapter livestock judging team placed first on Monday. There was 195 individuals in the contest with 51 teams, and we're very proud to report that Stetson Ellingson was high individual, and he won his first baby bison, which is something is a high goal for all FFA members. Jameson Ellingson was fourth. Sierra Ellingson was seventh, and it was Team Ellingson that combined the top three scores in the state to win the state contest. Allison Smith from Mandan also participated, and she received a silver ribbon, and Tyrell Claris from Mandan received a bronze. And so we're very proud of our 4-H individuals, and really glad that they were very successful. A couple things that I'm going to talk about is one of the things is that it goes without saying that farms should have a detailed or some type of an animal care and handling policy to prevent animal abuse, because we always see people that are being reported, and sometimes secretly animal rights people go in and tape people. And so we want to make sure that if you have employees, make sure that you give them some training to ensure they understand and utilize proper animal care standards. And the Texas A&M Extension Service is really promoting this. Dairy producers as well as other livestock operations have had issues with employees taking deceitful videos only to release them on social media and cast aspirations on the industry. And so we want to share some tips this morning about what to do and prepare maybe for if something would happen on our farms here in North Dakota. So the best advice is to prepare as if an investigation is going to happen. The most important place to start is with your hiring practices and employee training. First, employers should need to discuss their policy with an attorney to be consistent. You can't ask certain applicants, and of course you can't ask certain questions when you're making an interview. If they've been involved with animal rights groups, you have to ask everyone, not just one special person. And so to help prevent problems or provide a stronger case to litigate and prevent deceitful video from being played, have an applicant swear to the truth on the employment application under penalty of perjury. And so they would sign that application saying that they're not lying. check those references. Go one step beyond the phone number they provide to make sure it matches the company they say they've been previously employed with. And this not only has to do with farmers and ranchers, but any agricultural industry people as well.
Yards.
Yes, stockyards especially is one like Kiss Livestock as an example would want to be careful of that. And then we can always check on Google.
Yep.
Google those potential employees' name. That's free, something that you can go in. Check those social media pages: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You might be surprised what you find that some people post. And then sometimes you may have to consider paying for a professional background check.
When you're talking about those applications, is there a way that producers can get that wording so they don't have to create that on their own?
I'm sure that you can go to your local attorney and he should be able to find that. Okay. And almost with any application, lots of times you sign something, and so I think you could, and I don't have anything specifically, but that's a good question, Vanessa. Watch for someone seeking employment below their skill level, or if their previous employment is out of character with agricultural work, or if they're offering to work for a limited or no pay, after hours, or do jobs that no one else wants to do. Be concerned if you see employees where they shouldn't be or on the premises when they shouldn't be. Create an employment contract or handbook and get it reviewed by an attorney. The handbook can address a variety of issues, such as provision that all cell phones must be left in vehicles or in lockers, or rules that unauthorized photos or videos are the property of the facility owner.
One thing too, Jackie, is that I guess just with my background in human resources is that if you see a job jumper to someone who's really only been employed, a few months here, a few months there, could be a really big red flag as well.
Sure. Yep. That's a good comment, Carla. Thank you. And so you want to take swift action. And, be careful if, like, say, for instance, you're firing an employee and maybe you might have a disgruntled employee. Be aware of that as well. And so we want to make sure that you're prepared for something that could happen. And so that's one thing on the livestock level that you might want to consider. The next thing, I found this little thing I get this blog thing every day about morning egg clips. And some of the chefs that they interview predicting the trends of what people are liking for food. And the National Restaurant Association annually explores the top menu trends for the coming year. And they survey nearly 1,600 professional chefs with foods, beverages, and culinary themes. And the top one is that locally sourced meats and seafood. And buying local is a big trend, even here in North Dakota.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yes.
Know your farmer, know your producer is a big issue.
Chef-driven, fast, casual concepts is number 2. Locally grown produce, which we've kind of already discussed. Hyper-local sourcing, natural ingredients, and minimally processed food. Environmental sustainability, healthful kids' meals, new cuts of meats, and they're always coming out with new beef cuts, I know, and you see them advertised, and lots of these things are coming out, beef, pork, and lamb. House-made or artisan ice cream is number 10.
Ooh, all right.
Ice cream should always be up that list.
Yes, it should be on the list, yes.
But lots of cream and
Yes.
dairy.
Yes, and ethnic condiments and spices, and we've noticed that people are really shopping towards more herbs and different spices, and they like that. Farm estate branded items, and so that's locally grown once again. Artisan butchery, which is, a different cut of meat that you may have. And I know when I go to my local meat plant, when I get mine meat processed, I ask for some of those things like the flat iron steak and some of those. Oh, you've been watching too much Food Channel, they tell me. And so we want to make sure that they need to update themselves too, to make sure that they can provide what the customer wants. Ethnic inspired breakfast items, fresh house-made sausage, homemade or house-made artisan pickles, I guess was number 18. Number 19 is food waste reduction management, street food and food trucks. And we've noticed the food truck thing here in Bismarck, Mandan as well. That's an up-and-coming thing. And so those are the top 20. And Jim is signaling us for a break, and we'll be back after the break.
And we're back to the Extension Connection. This is Vanessa Hoynes, and Carla, you have a conference coming up you wanted to talk about.
I do. I'm pretty excited. It's called Ignite Legendary Leaders Conference, and it's coming up in Bismarck April 27th and 28th. And this conference, it's a statewide leadership conference. It will inspire participants to enhance their personal and community leadership skills and also help create the community in which they want to live. The conference is hosted by the North Dakota State University Extension Service and the North Dakota Leadership Network. And again, it'll be held April 27th and 28th at Bismarck State College National Energy Center of Excellence. Lynette Flage, she's the director of the NDSU Extension Service Center for Community Vitality, and her office is in Fargo. She had made a comment that developing and inspiring North Dakota leaders is a key mission of the NDSU Extension Service, which we all know. And with that in mind, we are all excited to kick off this first leadership conference in hopes that it will be a catalyst for an annual event. And the goal is to engage and excite current and future leaders. And I know they have a variety of things that they're going to do to try to excite leaders. And one of them is to recognize youth in the communities and what their role as a leader is doing in their community. And we have a young individual that will be speaking from the Morton County 4-H program. And her name is Lauren Hinckley. And I'm pretty excited. She's going to actually present a check to United Way for food banks, and she is going to give a speech on her leadership role in the community and everything she's done. And of course, we know that she's been recognized by the First Lady here in North Dakota with her work with the Backpack program and her peanut butter and jelly program. And she'll be kicking that off here in April. And so we're excited to have her speak in front of the group and let everyone know what her leadership role has done for her and for the community. And so other speakers for this event, they will share their expertise. And we have a motivational speaker coming. That's Morris Morrison. And he's the keynote speaker and the MC. He is presented for corporate giants such as GE, Microsoft, CBS, Pepsi, and the NBA. He has also spoken at many major colleges and youth organizations. And Morrison's highly popular Position for Success program encourages and inspires students on a journey toward personal growth, and he challenges them to make intentional choices to apply their leadership skills. That's what it says. Pretty interesting. Not just leadership.
Leadership.
Okay,
Yeah,
leadership.
That's cool.
Greg Tevin. He's co-founder and executive director of Emerging Prairie in Fargo. He'll share his story as well. He's an undergrad in the Carlson School of Management at the University of Minnesota. He co-founded Students Today's Leaders Forever in the Fargo-Moorhead, Minnesota, of course, area. He's a leader who organizes and manages numerous entrepreneur events, including TEDx Fargo and 1 Million Cups, which is the largest and most active 1 Million Cups program in the nation. If you get a chance to watch his TEDx videos, very interesting speaker. I'm excited to see him. The conference will also include 3 breakout sessions, and those presenters and their topics are Katie Pinky. She's a small business owner, community volunteer, and a blogger from Wishick. She'll talk about building and connecting rural engagement on and offline. Ryan Taylor, State Director for U.S. Department of Agriculture Rural Development in North Dakota, and the author of the syndicated column Cowboy Logic, will discuss leadership, change, and, of course, Cowboy Logic. Ben Winchester, Senior Research Fellow at the University of Minnesota Extension Center for Community Vitality, will speak on rural leadership, supply, and demand. And, of course, some of the Ignite presenters, in addition to Lauren, is Sean Gierke, a high school student from Beulah who has led a major community project. Megan from Minot. Her name is too difficult to pronounce, but Megan started a nonprofit organization called Strengthen North Dakota. Megan Meerdal of Fargo, who is involved in leading local food efforts, and Michelle Walker and Andrea Fonkert of Bismarck, who led a universal playground project for the community. So we're pretty excited. This event will fill up fast. Space is limited, so if you plan to attend, you should register early. And you can register by logging on to ag.ndsu.edu/ignite for information and, of course, the registration information.
Now, the night before that program, is that free to the public?
The 27th,
Yeah.
to my understanding, in the evening, yes, it's open to the public, and then the 28th then is when the fees would kick in then for the rest of the conference. So a couple other things that are coming up, excuse me, in the 4-H world. Of course, we are wrapping up a lot of different seasons here in March. Livestock judging wrapped up the beginning of March. Crop judging wrapped up as well. We have state indoor archery wraps up April 9th, so that's coming up pretty quickly. Our horse and horse judging events, hippology and horse quiz bowl events will be held April 2nd and 3rd in Fargo at the NDSU Equine Center and on campus. And then there's some other events coming up, including some shotgun instructor training in Devils Lake and in Wimbledon. And then there's an archery shoot coming up here April 30th, and that is going to be over at Nishu-Bowman Archery Complex, and that is for youth only. And that is an all-day event. There's going to be 2 shoots in one day. One of the events is a Vegas tournament, and the other one then is a 3D shoot, for beginners, juniors, and senior divisions. And there'll be some information coming out about that here. I'm hoping next week is our goal to get registration up and running for that event because it's coming up really fast. So, but that is pretty much it for 4-H events here coming up in the very near future. And of course, state archery. And then we kick into the busy summer season with our 4-H achievement days and everything else that's going on.
Okay, I got to find out. What's a Vegas tournament shoot?
A Vegas tournament shoot. That's a tournament that NISHU puts on when we are doing our Missouri River 3D shoot. So it's in addition to, 2 tournaments one day. And it's actually where you shoot at a target. It's a big circle, and then your high score then gets put in, and it's a money payback kind of thing. So kids have an opportunity then to earn some cash back in their archery skills.
Vegas.
So they call it Vegas.
Okay,
Yep.
Gotcha.
Close to Vegas they'll get before they
maybe
can
the
gamble.
target was moving.
No. Nope. So, but no, it's a chance for the kids to win a little bit of money and without gambling. So, of course, we're doing it the right way. So, but yeah.
Oh, good deal. That sounds fun.
Yeah, so all kinds of stuff going on. If you want to check it out, feel free to go over and check out our Facebook page or the Morton County Extension Service website as well. And there's all kinds of events posted on there for Morton County 4-H program.
Oh, good deal.
Back to you, Vanessa.
Okay, well, thanks. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about eggs, and coming up, Easter coming up at the end of the week. I'm sure there's people that are going to the grocery store looking at eggs, and so I thought this would be a good time to chat a little bit about them. Eggs are one of those things that maybe some people over the years have chosen to give up. I never really gave up eggs because even when the 190 milligrams of cholesterol was something that was in the news and was really kind of villainized by lots of nutrition folks. But really now the research is kind of backing that up, that we don't really have to worry about eggs. More nutrition guidance now has really softened, and the rules about eggs are changing. So as a result of ongoing research, we now know that the cholesterol in eggs that we were concerned about before is really termed as a dietary cholesterol, which means it does not appear to raise our blood cholesterol significantly in any way. And so an egg a day is considered okay for healthy people. However, be sure to follow any advice that your health care provider would give you, especially if you have diabetes or another chronic disease. Egg yolks, sometimes we don't realize, and that's also one of those, that was the culprit. That was the thing that people tried to stay away from. But egg yolks actually contain natural pigments or natural colorants, the color that makes the pigments that make them that golden color. Those are actually carotenoids that are known as lutein and zeaxanthin. And eating foods high in these pigments actually feed our macula. And I'm sure we've all heard of our macula, which is part of our eye. That is the piece that that can cause or is the issue with macular degeneration. And so eating foods that are high in these carotenoids, in lutein and zeaxanthin, are actually a benefit to that macula. And a macula is only about a fourth of an inch in diameter. It's really a yellow spot in the retina of our eye. And so this area is what helps us see sharply and clearly. And so very, very important piece. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back and we'll tell you a little bit more about eggs with the Extension Connection. Back with the NBSU Extension Connection. And this is Vanessa Hoynes with the Morton County Extension Office. And before the break, we were talking about carotenoids in eggs and how healthy they are for us. They're actually lutein and zeaxanthin, and how they help us to fend off macular degeneration. Because our body cannot manufacture lutein and zeaxanthin, we need to consume these pigments in our diet. And so, in fact, consuming foods rich in these pigments is associated with lowering our risk for macular degeneration. And so these this eye disease are actually one of the leading causes of blindness among our older adults, and so it is something we should be interested in. Other foods that are particularly high in these carotenoids are also corn and spinach, kale, and also orange bell peppers. And so we have some of those brilliant colors out there. And I always think it's interesting that corn makes this list, because corn lots of times gets kind of a bad rap, that it's a starchy vegetable, and so we stay away from it. But actually, in this case, it does have some important properties, and so there again rears that similar thing that we talk about, having a variety. That, yes, if all you eat is corn, probably not so good. But if you can mix corn in with the other vegetables that you're having, that can be a benefit.
Get some balance.
There you go. That's right. Balance is so important. Providing us with eye health pigments, eggs are better known as also a versatile, inexpensive source of protein. Maybe in the last year or so they haven't been as inexpensive as they have been in the past, but they still are relatively inexpensive when you compare them to some of the other foods in our protein food group. Eggs provide at least 13 vitamins and minerals, and they usually are considered the golden standard for protein because our bodies can use this protein in them very efficiently to build and maintain muscle. And each egg, if you're counting your ounces of protein per day, each egg counts as 1 ounce of protein. And so when you compare that to the cost of other meats and things, that can be really a good bargain.
Well, and I know, speaking of eating local, like Jackie was saying, a lot more people are starting to have their own chickens. So, just a couple chickens for the family, and maybe they don't live on a farm, but they're closer to town. And I thought that was really interesting. You can have fresh eggs and save some money, and
or even getting your eggs from a local producer
Yep.
too is becoming more and more popular. Yep. We used to be advised to restrict our eggs, because of that cholesterol. But more research, as we were talking about, really says we could have that 1 egg a day. And so now they have been talking about if you're really concerned about your cholesterol levels, some things you should be maybe looking at instead of that poor little egg for dietary change is maybe pay attention to the labels of the other foods you're eating, the more processed foods that may have trans fats or saturated fats. These are actually more the villains in now increasing that bad cholesterol and actually reducing the good cholesterol. So look for those words like trans fat. Look for, even more specifically, looking on the ingredient list of those products, looking for things like hydrogenation or partially hydrogenated, because those processes actually convert liquid oils to solid fats. And in that process, trans fats are formed. And so that word trans actually refers to that chemical structure. And so when we think about solid shortenings that are used in bakery goods and snack foods are among the greatest contributors of trans fats in our diet. And so lots of products are trying or attempting to remove some of those trans fats and make their products healthier. But consumers are really getting more savvy about trans fats, and they're looking for it on the labels. So, but even when you find a food that says or maybe labeled 0 trans fats or trans fat free, you still need to look for those terms like partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated, because of course companies have a way of maneuvering around those rules. Because be aware that trans fats may not show up on a nutrition facts label if the amount of trans fats per serving is less than 0.5 gram. And so the package can actually say 0 when there still may be 0.5 gram. Now you're probably thinking, well, that isn't very much. Should we be concerned about that? Well, they recommend that you try to ingest no more than 2 grams of trans fats every day. So,
and if you're eating maybe 2 servings of whatever is in
exactly.
that product.
And so that becomes the issue, is being very aware of what the serving size is so that you aren't overeating, especially if you find that one of your favorite foods contains some trans fat. You need to make sure that you are really staying strictly to that serving size. One food that comes to mind is coffee creamers. The powdered coffee creamers, because they indeed have trans fats in them, and unless they have managed to change their specific product, but normally they do. And so when you think about what the serving size may be, if the serving size is
it's probably small.
half a teaspoon, or if it's something like that, and you're putting in more like a tablespoon, then you are getting more than what that label is reflecting. And so that's a piece to be aware of. But the good news is that for egg lovers is that eggs do not contain any trans fat, and so we don't need to be worried about that. If you like fried eggs, using a nonstick pan can be a best way to not add any calories or other added fat. And adding veggies and things to your eggs, of course, gives you an additional nutrition boost. And I will have later today shared on our Facebook page a recipe for an egg muffin that I thought might be kind of fun, especially as we're getting prepared for the weekend and maybe company coming for Easter and such. But it's a recipe using muffin tins and basically having creating like almost like a individual omelets, little omelets in a muffin tin, and you can bake them ahead of time. You can refrigerate them, and they can be reheated even if you want to in the microwave. So if you have folks getting up at different times of the day and you want to have some ready to go, you can do that, and then they can be kept for a couple days in the refrigerator after you have baked them. So that might be a fun thing to try out. Other things to consider when it comes to eggs are of course safety issues. It's important to buy eggs from a refrigerated grocery case, and then also make sure you open the carton and check the eggs to be sure that you're not getting any cracked or broken eggs. Another tip with that is that sometimes you actually can't see the cracks, and so one thing to do is to actually go through and physically touch each egg and move them in the carton, because what can happen in travel, even if a carton gets slightly crushed, the eggs will they might leak out, they might actually crack and leak out, but then they will, for your purposes, you might not see any cracks because they kind of heal back up again.
Right, especially when they're refrigerated, solidifies a little.
Yeah, solidifies again. And then what happens is you go to take that egg out and it's actually stuck in the carton. And so the best way to check that is if you can move all of the eggs and you don't see anything, you're probably good to go. So that's a good tip. Another thing to look at, and I get calls about this very often, about checking the date on a carton of eggs. A lot of times what they use is called the Julian dating practice, and this is actually a date that's put on there when they are packed. And you can use eggs safely for 4 to 5 weeks beyond that packing date. And so a lot of people call thinking, oh, I got to throw these out. And no, actually, you still have lots of time, a month or more, to use that. So don't be throwing the eggs out prematurely. Do know that if you keep eggs for an extended period of time, that you will have some quality issues that will drop, but no other issues. And then, of course, if you're actually hiding eggs that are real eggs, make sure that you remember the 2-hour rule, that no eggs should be out or in a decoration of some kind for more than 2 hours if you actually plan to eat them. Make sure you get them back into the refrigerator after you've had your fun, or if you've been decorating the eggs or coloring them, they should be, if they're hard-cooked eggs, you should make sure that you're refrigerating them. So with that, we will take a break and we'll be back with the Extension Connection. And we're back with the Extension Connection, the Morton County Extension Office, and I'm going to turn over to Liz Larson, our Parent Resource Center Coordinator.
Yeah, right. So like I said at the beginning of the hour, I'm going to talk a little bit about how April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. So it's kind of sometimes an odd topic for some of us to talk about and talk about with kids, but there's lots of things you can do throughout the month and then also, obviously, all year long to be preventing child abuse and neglect. But I'll point out first, you can check out the PCAN website, so that's Prevent Child Abuse North Dakota. Google it, check out the website. They have a lot of great information, resources, and then also you'll see on there that Friday, April 8th is the National Wear Blue Day. So wearing blue, and you can even wear blue every Friday if you want to.
Here in Morton County, that's what we're kind of talking about, wearing them every Friday.
Exactly. So every Friday, if you have a blue shirt or a blue ribbon even to put on,
or if you want to wear your blue jeans.
Blue jeans. There you go. Friday's usually a jeans day anyway.
Yeah,
you can be all in blue. Yeah, so a couple of things you can do, like I said, this month and then always. The first is help reduce family stress. So in your own family, even families that you are in contact with, whether it's relatives or neighbors, whatever it might be, paying attention to your own tension and stress level. We kind of allow ourselves to forget that kids are aware of that. They sense it, whatever age they are, whether they're 2 or 15. They pick up on it and they're affected by it. And to help reduce that stress, you can get connected yourself to some help and resources. There's a great resource called 211. So you just dial 211, first link. They can connect you with everything from counseling to, if you're looking for a daycare or whatever it might be. So lots of ways to kind of reduce your own family stress in your own home. And then second one is to practice positive discipline. So I know, we always talk about spanking and kind of those corporal punishment things. And a lot of times it's hard to figure out what to do. We know what not to do, but what do you do? So,
and especially when we're frustrated and emotions are running high and, all those things play against us.
Exactly, right. Our physical reactions to situations when we're frustrated. So I'll give a little plug for the Parent Resource Center. We offer lots of parenting classes. We started with our Conscious Discipline class. That was last week. We kicked it off for about 5-week session we have coming up. And then also Common Sense Parenting for toddlers and preschoolers. So you can still register for this one. That'll start on April 19th. And it's 7 weeks. We do have options if you can only attend some of the weeks, because that is a big commitment. But it's 6:30 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday nights, and that'll be in Bismarck. So you can call us at 667-3342 to register, or you can go online. So it's www.tinyurl, that's tinyurl.com /region 7 is the number, PRC. And so you can register for that, and we'll kind of have some topics like how I grow and learn, my first teachers, help me calm down, and then putting it all together, so doing a bunch of things. So those are a couple of the kind of discipline-focused classes that we have coming up. One other thing you can be doing is to kind of develop an I can approach. So if you're talking about family communication, do a lot of I statements, right? Versus you're making me mad, you're doing this, or you did that. Doing a lot of I feel angry, I feel. And then we can model that for the kids around us as well. They can get kind of connected to their own emotions. And
I think it's always a good idea to remember to own your emotions and that they're yours and that nobody really can make you feel anyway.
Right, exactly.
That you're choosing to feel the way you are.
Yep. And not putting so much blame, especially when we're using those statements as adults and towards children. We want to be cautious with that. So another one, support kids to go from sibling rivalry to sibling cooperation. So a lot of these kind of tie in together. Obviously, those I statements can help with a little bit of that cooperation, but being mindful of needing to intervene. You know, kids don't always know how to deal with conflict themselves quite yet, so how can we intervene in positive ways and build those healthy relationships up? The fifth one I would mention is to keep kids out of the middle when there's a disagreement or even a separation or divorce. They're not messengers between you and the other parent. They don't need to hear you putting down their other parent in front of them. A couple of things you can do. You can encourage the relationship with both the parents, and then you can also seek your own support so that you're not looking to your kids to voice those frustrations or whatever might be going on. And then one of the other great things we have coming up is Parents Forever classes. So those are designed for parents that are separated or divorced, and we have a couple coming up in May and June. So it's just a one-time 4-hour shot. It's a little easier, less commitment. So one of them's May 12th in the evening and then June 11th in the morning. And the same thing, you can register online or you can call us at 667-3342. And those you need to register a couple weeks in advance just so we know going into class that we have enough people. So a sixth one is seeking regular developmental screening for your young children. So we want to make sure that kids are on track and growing and learning as they should. But also when you're doing those development screens, then you're going to learn what's normal, right? So we talk about frustration and if you expect them to do something and developmentally they can't yet, you know, if you're expecting them to do chores or whatever it might be in the house, there's just going to be an increase in frustration overall. So for everybody, the kids, the parents, everybody. So, you know, contact the pediatrician, making sure your kids are getting in for all their checkups. There's a lot that first year, but then making sure they get back every year after that too. Contact Right Track. Most counties, I think every county has Right Track as somebody that can come to your home. You know, they're really great. I know some of the ladies in Burley Morton counties, they'll make a point to come in the evening if you're working full time, that kind of stuff. And then if your kids are in school, using the resources there, the counselors, the teachers, making sure you get to conferences and all of that. And then the last one I'll talk about is just helping prevent child abuse and neglect. So, you know, being a good neighbor, grandparent, friend, whatever it might be, offering support to parents of not only young children, but when they have teenagers, you know, we need support in every phase. Vanessa's laughing.
Yeah.
So offering that support and refraining from judgment. If you have a way to connect them to a great resource, reach out, you know, offer to help out a little bit or whatever it might be. And then always being mindful that if it is a safety issue or you do see child abuse or neglect, contact your social service agency, and then obviously 911 if it's an immediate concern. So that's a few things you can focus on this month during child abuse prevention. And I know one of the most important things is we want to have fun. We want to have fun with the kids. We want to have fun ourselves. Looking for play groups or, you know, as the weather is getting nice outside, you can be looking at the Parks and Rec board to get us outside in the parks and just doing a lot of good stuff like that to make it a fun event rather than having to focus just on the reality that we do have some abuse and neglect in our communities, but we can talk about it with kids and have some fun.
That's right.
instead.
It's important to have fun.
Yes,
Be outside.
exactly. Build those relationships with the little ones that we have around us. So.
And being a good role model, like you mentioned, too, for other parents.
Exactly. So I don't know if you guys have anything else that you wanted to cover in the Extension Connection. We are wrapping up here.
I think maybe another piece that they could look at is going to our NDSU Extension Service website. We have lots of resources there too about developmentally appropriate, and it might give them some things or some tips that they could look for too. And that's sometimes we just expect more than the kids are able to do, and that causes frustration. And if we can have a better idea or more realistic idea about what they can do, that can help us out too.
Yep, one in the Parent Resource Center, we do have lots of reading materials, if a class isn't something that a parent can make it to. So.
Yeah, so definitely connect with Liz, and her number would be 667-3342. Well, and I think with that, we'll be closing and wish everybody a happy Easter, and we'll be back in 2 weeks for the Extension Connection.